Welcome to OCC Scrims. Today we have a matchup from our Deadlock gang. We have Game of Throws and Phoenix Rising. This is going to be a really exciting game. These two teams haven't met in a long time, and we're going to see how these teams are seeded. From your casters, I am K-Wing, and I'm here with Megalass.
Hello. Hi.
So these two teams, it's going to be a really interesting game going in here. So let's look at the rosters.
Yes, indeed. To quickly go through our rosters. First, for Game of Throws, we have Dan the Awe and Darius Fulton on the tanks. Then we have Sway and Skittles taking up the DPS roles. And then Crazy Lady and Wheezy both picking up the support roles for the team.
Yeah, that's a very interesting composition. I haven't seen a lot out of either of these teams in the time that I've been with OCC, so I'm very excited to sort of see how these teams go up. And then for Phoenix Rising, we have Star-Lord and Kobayashi both taking on the tank role. We have Zella and Helix Snake on DPS, and then we have Paprika and Chi-Chi on support.
Yes, indeed. And here in the Deadlock division, I mean, we always you talk about Phoenix Rising, you talk about Void. Game of Thrones is one of the teams that kind of slips under the radar, but they almost have like a Chengdu effect about them, where they can come out just doing some nonsense off the wall, and on any given day, they'll just take down a good team.
Yeah. So that X Factor is very much there with Game of Thrones. So really interested to see if it's going to come out, or Phoenix Rising is going to, using kind of meta comps, is going to take the win. So going into our first map of Oasis here, what are we thinking about in terms of compositions?
I mean, obviously the Genji is going to be prevalent right now, just with how powerful the hero is in game. I mean, it's just ridiculous the one-shot combos you can pull off and string that into teamfight wins. But maybe, with the ingenuity of the lower elo, you could say maybe there's better counters. Maybe like a better Winston player or something like that could just come out and completely tear another team asunder.
Mm-hmm. And we're just about to get into our first round of the first map here. And this first point on Oasis, there's a lot of high ground. There's a lot of... So taking advantage of that can be a very, very important thing. So the Genji, with his wall climb ability and his ability to go from the high ground to the low ground and back very quickly, is very advantageous to even add to his already incredible repertoire of powerful abilities.
To make sense to you.
And coming in, we have some interesting picks. We have, like we said, we had Phoenix Rising on. We have Phoenix Rising on a pretty meta comp. We have the Ashe, the Mercy, and we have, well, I was going to say we had a bit of an off-meta comp from Game of Thrones, but they switched off the Pharah. So it's almost complete mirror with a Sigma and a Lucio on the side of Game of Thrones, and a Zarya and a Mercy on the side of Phoenix Rising. I'm interested to see how these two styles differ. And immediately we see the Lucio coming into play as Game of Thrones are able to get positioning on the point very quickly, and they get 2 picks for it onto Paprika and Star-Lord, and immediately this aggression coming in from Darius Fulton on the Reinhardt pushes them far out before the point even opens. And this first fight is going to go to Game of Thrones.
Yes, indeed, they were able to get it really quickly because, as you pointed out, the Lucio kind of sped boosted them in, and they just got the complete control of the point. There was no pick to really come through for the side of Phoenix, but now they're switching to a signal of their own, so the only difference being Mercy here, and maybe the damage was on the Ashe. As Phoenix is already going
Dynamite onto Helix Snake into an early pick, and the Mercy does come into res. That is a big advantage of the Mercy. Helix Snake, using his second chance very well, finding the pick on the Darius Fulton, has a big Anthony coming in to Dan off, does get picked off for it, and we have the Valkyrie coming in for Chi-Chi, and as a couple of ults are coming in, on both sides, we have Phoenix Rising pulling out with all the picks coming in. But there are some respawns coming in. But no, Game of Thrones will be pulling off. And the point will be flipped over to Phoenix Rising.
Yes, indeed, and considering the lack of ultimates really invested from either team into that fight, this next fight is going to be extremely ult-heavy wherever it goes down. I mean, you're going to be worried about Nanoblade coming out for the side of Phoenix, but almost build up to one waited as they're already going into the next fight.
Helix Snake goes down almost immediately to Clash the Rhines, and the beat comes in with 2 picks already on the side of Game of Thrones to make it a third. Zella's still on this high ground. That's a very good move from Skittles, trying to contest Zella on that high ground so that he can't be uncontested. And that is a quick fight win for Game of Thrones. Already we see a lot of back and forth between these two teams.
A lot of back and forth. I think the mirror that's coming down right now is this Rhine duel, as we're already nanoblading in.
We have the nanoblade here from Helix Snake. We're going to see how this goes. Not a lot of CC, and it does find Darius Bolton. 2 picks for Phoenix Rising. The Vidic Flux does find Star-Lord, but there's still a couple of picks on the side of Game of Thrones, on the side of Phoenix Rising, and that fight will be going to Phoenix Rising, but it's a matter of when all these stalled picks are going to go down. That will be now, with 82% for Game of Thrones, and that is 1 fight territory for Game of Thrones. So Phoenix Rising have to almost be perfect here.
Yes, indeed, but they do have the ultimates that definitely extend out fights or running perfect. They have the Earth Shatter, the Gravitic Flux coming up on a Valkyrie as well. And Darius Bolton on the right, just so aggressive, fighting and punishing.
The blade comes in on Skittles, finds the Mercy immediately. That's a huge pick. That means no res. And then Shatter comes in, finds 2 for Game of Thrones, and that is a team kill. It's going to be the question of how Phoenix Rising is going to be able to contest here, because of how short of a time they have to get onto the point to trigger an overtime. They have to get more of a sloppy engage here. We see 5 seconds left for them. They need to touch this point, and they need to not be stalled out, and they just get to touch the point there. Waze Bob does get the point, and no one else goes onto the point, and that is the first round for Game of Thrones.
And I'm not sure if it's just the Lucio coming out for the side of Game of Thrones, but there's just such an aggression that they're putting forward. Whenever they're winning fights, they're winning them decisively. They're completely wiping. Whereas the side of Phoenix Rising, they're having to stagger out fights, letting Game of Thrones occur more percentage, and just overall take more time. And it's really starting to bite them in the long haul.
Definitely so. That coordination.
Yep.
I mean, the coordination of that's what a Lucio depends on, is that coordination, that ability to have that healing or that speed boost onto all the members of the team.
Yes, indeed. But now they're interestingly are going to be the ones to pull out the Zarya on the side of Game of Thrones, maybe just to take more advantage of that aggression. And Zell, interestingly enough, going over to the Kree here on the city center, simply because you probably have a little bit better sight line, since not everything is super long range.
So we have a high ground versus a low ground here. Phoenix Rising does have point control, so Phoenix Rising is just trying to bait Game of Thrones into going into them, and they do. Big anti-nade onto Church, and Sway gets 2 with the dynamite there. That's a huge pick for Sway, and immediately, even though Darius Fulton goes down, there's a lot of picks on the side of Game of Thrones here. And that is, even though Phoenix Rising gets initial point control, the first fight goes to Game of Thrones with a good engage off of the high ground.
Hello. Yes, indeed, and I once again already have to highlight Darius. Sure, maybe not dealing the insane amount of damage you can expect from a Reinhardt, but just taking all of the space, all of the attention to allow Sway to get that dynamite into the backline, and just, this is the plays you need from your Reinhardt, to just absolutely occupy the
very much. And there's a flanking charge from Star-Lord, who gets a bunch of CC to the face. And Dandy gets caught behind enemy lines and gives his life for it. blade is good. Looks like it may come into Helix Snake, but goes too low to use it. Into the back line, pulls the blade out, and the beat immediately comes in to counter it, but it was a little bit out of LOS, so it might not have catched everyone it wanted to catch. The shatter comes in, but it is disrupted, and that is a fight win for Phoenix Rising. That was a very important ultimate that came out from Darius Fulton right at the end of that fight there.
Yes, indeed, they got Shatter and Beat out of the side of Game of Thrones, which is definitely what you want, seeing as that it was really. But once again, they're not taking these fights cleanly for the side of Phoenix Rising. It was a fight that was won for them essentially around 35%. Still more stall, but I have to interrupt myself with the initiation block.
The lift, it does not find anyone, but it takes Darius Fulton very low, and he goes down. And that is a nice, clean fight for Phoenix Rising there. And now it's up to Game of Thrones to just get out of dodge and not get picked off. Weezy, just gets staggered out. And now it is the fighting retreat for Phoenix Rising. They caught out the members of Game of Thrones very, very late at a lot more percentage for them.
But coming out spawned now, the ultimate is invested for the side of Phoenix Rising that last fight, so this advantage is definitely for Game of Thrones, and Eno is going to be devastated here.
But Darius Fulton is the first to go down. The Shatter finds a couple. Zella goes in with the blade, finds one, but there's already a pick on the side of Phoenix Rising here. And Skittles finds two, and Danny Gaw finds a third. So this is going to be a very close fight. Helix Snake comes in with a pick on the Skittles. And again, a very scrappy fight coming in here. And I'm not even sure who's going to win here. The blade is pulled out. Phoenix Rising thinks this fight is winnable. And it does find Weezy. But Helix Snake gives a fight for it. And Starlord finds the end of the wave. And a lot of ults coming in this fight. Very good for Phoenix Rising as they are capturing this point. Even if they lose the point at this point, they're in one fight territory. Sway finds two with the Bob. And finds one with the Bob, and one with picks coming in on the side of Phoenix Rising. And this fight, scrappy as it may be, High comes in from Zella, trades easy, and at this point, Paprika uses the Coalescence, finds Sway. The Shatter comes in, finds Paprika, but she finds Crazy Lady, and this might be a fight win for Phoenix Rising, a very scrappy fight win, but a round win nonetheless.
Yes, indeed, but it was very scrappy, and I think it was mainly scrappy from the side of Game of Thrones. They definitely had a time where they could have just committed, said that they lost the fight, and come out. But instead they just keep committing somewhere around 50%, and it just keeps building and building until the overtime round is in effect. So now we're going to our final round of Oasis, the University, I believe it's called, if memory does serve. And so far we're seeing whichever team runs the Zarya has the worst end of it. So I'm not really excited to see Phoenix Rising hovering over it.
Yeah, we go Sway on the Pharah, which she was hovering over last round, but it does look like she's going to run it this time.
Yes, indeed, and it's interesting, maybe possibly just a read, knowing Zella's on the Doomfist here instead of
Yeah, but Zella finds Dan the Wave, but Weezy does trade out for it, and it does look like Game of Thrones getting 3 picks here in this Rhine duel between Darius Fulton and Starlord. Over on the right side, Skittles finding a handful of picks there, and that late pick onto Starlord, very, very important for getting out a little bit of stall.
Yes, indeed, and now Zell being forced over to the McCree just to counter the Pharah in the sky. And this Rhine duel is so interesting because Starlord is playing such a passive Reinhardt in comparison. I mean, it's helping out his team a lot more, but just the overall damage is very low. That a monster
big anti-nade onto Starlord allows Skittles to find the pick off, and still Phoenix Rising pushing in on this down the main tank, but they're still pushing in. Chi-Chi going very low, getting picked off by Sway, and Even though Starlight gets back, there's already 2 picks coming in on the side of Phoenix Rising though. In the fight, the blade comes out. And the barrage comes in, but does not find any picks, and a very late coalescence from Paprika, potentially to keep some of the tanks up, but and Zella finds Crazy Lady very late after that fight. It's a very crucial pickoff to delay the incoming attack from Game of Thrones.
Yes, indeed, but we're also seeing the Phoenix Rising composition, how terrified they are of the DPS on the other side. Clearly Skittles has been a problem that they're running this Moira versus the backline. And as far as still in the sky, despite there being completed counters, so Zella's just going to counter.
It's going to be very scary with this Nano Blade coming in from Skittles. Already 1 pick from Wheezy, 1 pick from the Nano Blade. Gets 2 before getting taken out by Chi-Chi, who gets immediately taken out by Crazy Lady. The Shatter comes in from Starlord, finds 1. But I'm not sure it's going to contribute to anything in terms of a fight.
Yeah, I mean, that was just committed trying to make the hero play 2v5 on the point. Fortunately, it's just not enough, and so now back in control are Game of Thrones, and they've got plenty of the ultimates to hold this out, probably to at least the 85% mark, which is the golden staple to get in that 1-fight territory.
But there are a lot of ultimates on the side of Phoenix Rising. You have the Graviton, you have the Rally to engage, you have and Zella finds to come on his way. That's a big early pick. A Shatter finds 4. That's huge from Darius Bolton. A couple of ultimates coming in on the side of Zella finds 3 with the High Noon. That's incredible on the High Noon from high ground on the right there, and that is an immediate fight win for Phoenix Rising. But like you said, into 86% for Game of Thrones, and that is 1-fight territory. All they need to do is build up their ultimates in this next fight, and they can come in after draining some ultimates from Phoenix Rising and just take this point.
It's going to be difficult, and the Flux apparently got canceled there.
I'm not sure exactly by what, but Sway does find a pickoff onto Zella, and that will give her uncontested control of the high ground here. The barrage comes in, catches Chi-Chi, but Helix Snake does find Sway, and this is going to be a very scrappy fight, but it does look like Phoenix Rising are going to find the crucial pickoff to make it very close. It's going to be this next fight to decide who wins. The sweep onto Helix Snake, but he gets up. Charge from Darius Bolton. That is a crucial ultimate that's not going to be on the board for this next fight. That blade will not be here for this next fight. Darius Bolton tries to push in. They're on the point. They're going to trigger this overtime. But they need to be cautious of Zella on the high ground. It's going to be a little bit uncontested here. Freak to find Skittles. The Shatter finds 2. And Game of Thrones are going to... they're going to try and grab Blade, but they don't have enough follow-up for it. Helix Snake just gets immediately deleted. That's very, very unfortunate for Phoenix Rising. That could have been their retake ultimate.
Wheezy was the hero on this point, and it was hard to notice, but in the middle of that fight, it was actually Bizarre got knocked down Kobayashi, so there was no point that they could even grab, and no point they can even touch. Game of Thrones takes map 1 off of the back of some insane clutch Lucio play.
Very good Lucio play from Wheezy. And Zella, this High Noon from the high ground there, just showing the power of high ground there. The beat comes in to try and save, and it takes out the beat there as well. That's even better for Zella to get 4 picks in that fight. That was very good.
Yes, indeed. And it's just, but it was so close on just already map 1. You can tell that this is going to be a good series regardless of how far it goes. The Game of Thrones already getting 1 on the board. You always feel good getting that first one under your belt because it gives you just the teeniest bit of cushion.
It always does. It always does. So Game of Thrones going up 1-0 in this first map, and they are looking to make it 2 in our next map, which is Numbani.
Yes, indeed, the second map of Numbani, as we're just waiting, making sure any substitutions have to come through. So far, we have Game of Thrones is going to be subbing Sinks in their flex DPS players, subbing out for Sway, maybe trying to get a little bit more hit scan in there instead of some double projectile.
Yeah, I mean, Sway was not dead weight on the Ashe there. On the end of game cards, we saw that Sway had a 65% elimination participation, which is very, very good for an Ashe. Which means that they're charging that ultimate very fast, and they're just getting a lot of damage in onto the enemy team.
Yes, indeed, and that's exactly what you need from your DPS players. You need them to be doing damage, but again, it's just the tank play allowing you to create all of that space and just kind of exist in this powerful environment. As we're just going to quickly make sure both teams are ready, as there's no further swaps coming through. But going into Numbani, we might see more Pharah play just because of how the map kind of works out. Until you get to third point, Pharah can really take advantage of the high grounds as well as just be in the air and be a constant nuisance.
Yeah, Pharah is very, very powerful, especially in lower elos when it's a bit harder to counter because the aim skill is not as present as in higher elos.
I do think Zell was no slouch on the McCree though. Like, there's just a point where it's too much to counter. You know, you have the Pharah in the sky, you have the Genji in your back line. Like, as a McCree, your team always asks you to counter it all, but unfortunately, you just can't. There's just too much happening.
Yeah, that was not to say that anyone was slouching there on any sort of role. It was a very, very close map 1, and I'm very excited to see what these two teams pull out for map 2.
You know what? I'd like to say that all the players were slouching. I definitely could take them in a 1v12 situation.
You heard it here first, folks. After the game, Megalast versus both Game of Thrones and Phoenix Rising in a 1v12.
1v12, get me on Roadhog. I'll be popping off. I'll be existing for probably about 0.3 seconds before 2 Reapers delete me at once.
And you are looking as lovely
but highlighting the defense just because they're a little bit more locked in the Game of Thrones. We've got the Ashe in play for Skittles now, and Sync's actually the one going over to the Genji, so a little bit of swing rolls. And also Wheezy onto Mercy now. I mean, the Lucio play sure can't work on every map, but it did absolutely crazy with Lucio, considering it's not the most powerful hero in the meta right now.
No, not really, but Wheezy definitely made it work with all of Lucio's arsenal, and we do see the Widowmaker coming on for Eva Snake, looking to find some early picks. Usually we think of Widowmakers being countered by this double barrier, but any small mistakes, any little slip outside of the barrier, and that Widow can catch you and delete your hero from the game. Oh, Ashe. We see Zella on the flanks here, trying to catch some of these heroes out by surprise here. And we see this pretty drawn-out fight here. Darius Bolton might be pushed off the high ground, and he is. It's a very important concession there that he's taken off the high ground. The charge coming in, and Darius Bolton goes down after his charge does not land. And a lot of picks coming in for Phoenix Rising. Immediately, Zella does get picked off, but Paprika immediately, Chi-Chi immediately red.
Yes, and I think that was just also the matter of Phoenix Rising knew what they wanted to do, and they were able to pressure it so well because Helix Snake just existing on Widowmaker mainly forced Dan's Sigma to be there, forced Sigma's entire attention, making it a 5v5. Definitely would rather have the Sigma versus the Widow than a 5v5.
Yeah, and this is a very tough position for Game of Thrones because they're just in this position of some of their members got spawned for point B, and some of them got spawned for point A, so they're trying to take this fight a little bit early, but they're getting picked off, so they're taking it at a bit of a disadvantage there. A big anti-nade onto Star-Lord, even though the Mercy had her beam on him, he was not able to heal, so he got the pick off, and it's a big ability down on the side of Phoenix Rising. That res is very, very important. The Shatter comes in, finds 2, lift up, and the Gravitic Cloak finds 3. Oh! Gets stunned out of it. Darius Bolton gets stunned out of a shatter by Star-Lord, but Star-Lord does give his life for it. Getting a lot of ult charge off of it. Bob coming in, just fighting each other here. And we're going to be very close here. The offense becomes a Darius Bolton. Wheezy finds to pick onto Zella, but oh! The cart does move forward onto point B. And again, just these early pickoffs between fights from Phoenix Rising are killing Game of Thrones here. They're taking less fights because of it, and it's very, very important that they group up and get these coordinated team fights here. Especially in this elo, we have Zella and Zella and Chi-Chi on the flank. And this damage boosted Ash is a very, very powerful thing. The ult comes in, the blade comes in, the nano blade finds Paprika, and immediately and 2 picks on the side of Game of Thrones. Skittles finding 2. The res does come in, surprisingly enough, even though Phoenix Rising is very much down in that team fight, the res is able to get through from Chi-Chi.
So much happened there. I mean, it was just such one continuous fight that you just had to keep going. Pretty much all of B was given up for free. There was no real one concise team fight. And then also, Sinks' blade there was supposed to be a nano blade, but somehow Wiz on the Mercy ended up receiving the nano, so that's just one of those things you have to take. Now going forward, I think Darius has got to land this big shatter because there's just such an ult disadvantage, and he lives!
Gets one. Darius Bolton does charge Zella, but also gets the pick on Paprika as well. But in the meantime, Phoenix Rising has just been deleting everyone else on the other team on Thrones. But it does look like the picks coming in from Game of Thrones, as well as the close respawn distance that they have, is going to spell the difference for this team.
Yes, indeed, and that shatter, I mean, the card didn't get too much free charge on us off that, so it's okay, but there's still such an ult disadvantage for Game of Thrones right now, and the flux is just the beginning here as it is.
4 lifted up into the air and lose half their health, and Wheezy getting picked off early by Zella. The pulse jump comes in, doesn't find anyone, but a decisive fight win for Phoenix Rising, a team kill, and I don't think anyone's going to be able to touch. No, that's it. 3 minutes and 4 seconds for Phoenix Rising there. That is a great time for Numbani.
That was an extremely dominant offense on Numbani for the side of Phoenix Rising. I mean, they clearly just had a strategy going in, they came in with it, and they knocked it out of the park. So now it's not even the matter of can you respond. You have to respond if you're Game of Thrones. You have to, because you're now fighting for at least 1 minute on that clock to give yourself an overtime push. Otherwise, at best, you're fighting for a draw, and I just don't think a draw is possible if you get underneath that minute timer. Oh my goodness, I mean, just phenomenal play from Phoenix Rising once again. Just knowing to push their advantage, knowing that they can just continue to hold that W key, take all the space they want, continue.
Yeah, the aggression coming out from them was very, very exciting, and Phoenix Rising going with the Symmetra Bastion strategy on defense, which reminds me of playing Bronze in 2016. But I'm sure that they do have a strategy there that
well, I mean, I guess your advantage with Symmetra here is depending on what you do with your teleporter. Like, you could just set up a basic spawn TP, or you can teleport the Bastion between the 2 high grounds. It just looks like they
and that's what they're going to be doing there with the Baptiste as well as the Mercy. They're very much focused on a protect the president sort of strategy. They're predicting Game of Thrones to go to the top right, see where the Symmetra monsters are, but they immediately get destroyed. And we do have the dive competition coming in, but immediately Helix Snake deletes 2 members of the other side of Game of Thrones. But Chi-Chi does go down, which is a very, very important part of this present strategy. The Crazy Lady does find Zella. However, a lot of picks coming in with Helix Snake on this Bastion, getting damaged by the Mercy. And that is a fight win for Phoenix Rising. And you can see just how much damage Helix Snake has done. He already has his ultimate.
Indeed, that Mercy damage was to do it to you. Very interesting the way Chi-Chi went down. It's almost like the strategy was to have Chi-Chi be the one to contest point, but I'm not really sure that's the position you want your Baptiste in. And so now you have this dive coming from Game of Thrones, and they're forced to go under. The question is, are they going to dive onto the back, or are they going to try to force the point, make them rotate down?
Yeah, the thing is that it's very hard to dive when you have that teleporter up, and immediately Helix Snake uses that ultimate, gets in the wave from it. This wall coming in from Zella is able to just protect Helix Snake with such a small little space for him that it's almost impossible to touch him for that entire duration of the ultimate. And that is another fight win for Phoenix Rising. Even though Wheezy does get a pick onto Zella, it's immediately rezzed.
Yes, indeed. And now we have Darius going over to the Reinhardt, which is just a... I mean, it's an interesting thought nonetheless. And there's Dan to followed up with the switch to Zarya. I mean, I would have preferred maybe sticking on the D.Va here and actually just full committing to a dive first, breaking the teleporter and
damage
then
boost engaged.
Going through. But you're going to have Blade this fight. You're going to come in with a pulse bomb as well. As long as you can force the immortality field from Chi-Chi, you're looking pretty good on this dive attempt. But if you're not, I mean, you have less than a minute.
Yeah. It's very much a do or die time for Game of Thrones, especially with the time bank that Phoenix Rising set on their attack. We see them going around, and Skittles immediately gets picked, gets both the DPS line, and the Shatter coming in from Star-Lord finds 2 as well. Again, the Awe does find Star-Lord, but it's easy res.
Well, it was a nice little staggered kill. He's gonna need staggered kills here. Zarya just needs to jump off the cliff.
Yeah. That was brutal. And we have one fight territory for Game of Thrones. This is their only shot to have a chance of even going forward in this map, seeing past point A.
I mean, yeah, and Skittles used Pulse Bomb at some point. I wasn't really aware of it happening. But
neither.
That's something that you're going to wish you had back, just because it can force lamp, or with how clustered they are, you can get so many kills from it.
Yeah, the Blade does come in from Sing, but a lot of ultimates coming in. I think that's 4 ultimates coming in on the side of Phoenix Rising. Just how many ultimates that they have. A lot of picks coming in on both sides. So we're going to see who is going to get this fight win. Darius Fulton finds a pick on Zella, and Helix Snake onto Dan the Wave. But a lot of picks coming in for Phoenix Rising, and they're going to stabilize, and that is going to be the round for Phoenix Rising. That is a dominant performance from them.
Yes, indeed. Map 1 was close, but Numbani, Phoenix Rising just looked like they were playing with their food. Their composition worked well. They knew exactly what they were doing. Just a little bit of highlighted the Sigma play here from Kobayashi. I mean, you could have highlighted anyone on Phoenix Rising to play the game. There were so many 4Ks coming through. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. So going into our halftime here, we are 1-1. I'd say that having our halftime here right now very advantageous for Game of Thrones, because if it were me, I would be very, very upset at how that Numbani round went. So going into our next map, which is Junkertown, what do you think that both these teams have to work on going into the halftime and thinking about our next maps?
I mean, if you're thinking specifically for Junkertown, I mean, Phoenix Rising has already shown that they can play the Bastion. This is kind of where the pirate ship meta became a thing. Game of Thrones, they just kind of have to reset their mental, be like, okay, we lost that one pretty badly. We have strategies going in for next map, and they just kind of find a way to bounce back with whatever they can.
I do think also the Widowmaker might be an interesting pick here, but we will see what happens in this match when we come back from our halftime.
me queen, I'm living inside a dream. I'ma go full out. I'ma go full out. I'ma go full out. Sounds alright, feeling so weird. I got you alright, but no way you're here, but no way you're here. I feel like you're way away. Come to see you sometime, 'cause I need you way away. Want to know everyone, I can see you around, trying to get it done. Feeling like there's a man, when you lay on the side. It's all I do, see what I do. All the crazy women, I want to see that. Feeling like there's a man, when you lay on the side. It's all I do, think about you. Think about you, think about you. Here's what I mean, what I'm told.
And welcome back. We are back with Game of Thrones and Phoenix Rising 1-1 here. Last we left off, Phoenix Rising had kind of dominated Game of Thrones on Numbani, winning it 3-0, not barely even letting Game of Thrones touch the first point. So going into Junkertown, Game of Thrones really does have to go back to the drawing board because Junkertown is a very, very popular map for more Bastion strats, like Phoenix Rising pulled out on Numbani.
Yes, indeed. And even if it's not Bastion strats, I mean, on their offense, Phoenix Rising still just kind of played a double hit scan towards the end, some Tracer, and they were so dominant because they found their measured aggression. Sure, it wasn't the tanks being the ones to push up, but still, like, the DPS were finding picks. And that's kind of what you need from your DPS players. You need them to be able to work with what they got. And, I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah. But we do have the possibility of a Widowmaker coming in from either side. Widowmaker is a very popular hero on Junkertown with the long sight lines that the map features. So as soon as we get the ready from both teams, we will start this map.
Yes, indeed. And I'm very interested to see, what sort of compositions are going to roll out, if we'll have the Bastion composition, as you said, with the pirate ship. This is where the pirate ship started, of course, so it's always fun to see it, but at the same time, it's just kind of evolved. So who the heck knows?
Yeah.
As we are still just waiting for the R for Phoenix Rising, and apparently they have someone using the restroom, so we're just going to kind of get to do this little thing called stalling here.
Yeah. I mean, that is what it is. So looking forward to our next map because we are going to be going into a fourth map. No matter what happens here, regardless of who wins, we're going to be going into Hanamura, which is going to be very interesting, very draw prone Hanamura. Because point A is always very not easy to attack, but there's a bit of an advantage for the attackers on point A and a large advantage for the defenders on point B.
Yes, indeed, as all 2 CP maps tend to lie, but at the same time, first point holds are never out of the ordinary.
No.
And so it just kind of boils down to what teams have in the tank, because, I mean, at this elo, you could expect some set strategies, but at the same time, people could just try to do, whatever comes to them. Maybe they'll try to play the meta and just force a Genji everywhere. Who really knows? But enough about Hanamura. We're finally getting into Junkertown. And I mean, it's always fun to go to the Outback, Nice wide open spaces. Good scan gets to play.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm an American, so it's my only experience of the Outback. I mean, do you guys count Outback Steakhouse? I don't think you do.
I mean, perhaps. Depends on who you're asking. I think if you were to ask an actual Australian, they'd get angry and throw a boomerang at you, but hey.
Oh, good.
Probably.
Now I'm not the only one being stereotypical, and we're both being bad people.
All of our Australian viewers, all 2 of them, they just logged off. They're writing letters.
Ready for battle.
That's disappointing. Now neither of us are going to be able to captain the Australian Overwatch League.
Specifically Australia.
Yeah.
How many... I'm trying to think how many Overwatch League players are Australian. I can only think of...
There are a few.
Enjoy the quiet while it lasts.
They've had some good in the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, they've definitely shown promise at the World Cup.
We shall prove ourselves in glory.
Right, but we do
Unfortunately,
see...
this is our world here and now, and we have for the first time Marisa, my favorite tank hero, aka the boring point and shoot. That's what I like to say.
5, 4.
We do have the Bastion comp. Oh, no, we don't. I am lying. We have double sniper, somewhat. And we do have Junkrat Genji on the side of Game of Thrones. It's a very interesting composition here. As the Junkrat takes some off angles, even some flanks, but does get caught out barely by Zella. And that's very, very important. There's a lot of high ground control on the side of Phoenix Rising there. With the Hanzo with the Axe, there's a lot of pressure on the high ground. And immediately we see that Game of Thrones does get pushed off. And this Hanzo very much in the backline, taking shots at the support for Game of Thrones, Baptiste and the Mercy. Sway does take care of Helix Snake though, get rid of that threat, but Zella is able to, with one clean headshot, take down Sway.
Staggered out fight. Next they're gonna finally wrap up as they capture pretty clean, nothing too out of the ordinary. They were able to punish an overexception on the jump shot. The press just kind of snowball that. Moving forward now, they already have their Earth Shatter online. They're already going to have Coalescence as well. But there is still the Blade to worry about from Saints on the other side, as well as a Valkyrie to pair with it. But getting picks like that is exactly what it is.
Yeah, that is going to help continue the snowball as now there's a 5v6. And there's not a lot to contest Helix Snake on the high ground as he finds another. Well, there's not a lot to contest him on the high ground except for a Reinhardt climbing the stairs. Weezy does get the resurrect, but it is currently an even fight with one pick on both sides. Oh, the Shatter finds 4! Darius and the Auto go down for it. Sigma does use a couple of ults do come in here on Phoenix Rising. That is important that they do have to use a few more ultimates to clean this fight out. They probably would have liked to save that Gravitic Flux and that Bob for a later fight. And Crazy Lady is caught out behind here. Might be able to get away, but no. Star-Lord getting 3 in that cleanup, and that is very important. Dan and Sway and Weezy both now need to get out of dodge, and now it's just Sway that needs to get out of dodge as Zella finds 2 staggering picks. That is incredible for Phoenix Rising to snowball this fight.
Got you good as new.
This indeed, Paprika just being the lone one pushing the cart as they have been for most of this series, and I think it's just such a crazy amount of aggression as a pause is quickly called for the side of Game of Thrones. So, I mean, just so far this map has just been so one-sided in the name of Phoenix Rising.
Mm-hmm.
They've just been able to truly do everything. Outside of that, maybe overcommitting of some ults there towards the end of B, but you're not really sweating it too much just because of how quickly you're building. But I mean, coming back into this next fight, obviously we did have a little bit of a disconnect. But
yeah, we do have Dan the Odd disconnecting, and I don't remember exactly where he was to his ultimate, and that could be when he reconnects. That could be a large detriment to Game of Thrones there, because they are very close to, if we look behind the pause, we see 3 ultimates online and 2 ultimates very, very close for Game of Thrones. And on the side of Phoenix Rising, we see 2 ultimates coming up on 3 more, but not a lot coming in this next fight that's going to be game-changing on the offensive, but a lot of offensive ultimates on the side of Game of Thrones. You have the Pulse Bomb, you have the Shatter, you have Window, you have you also have the Valkyrie as well. There's just so many different possibilities that you can use. And I do think that coming into this next fight, the test for Game of Thrones is going to be how many ultimates do they have to use to win this fight? Because if they win the fight, but they use all 5 of their ultimates, well, Phoenix Rising is just going to come in with the 5 ultimates that they built from that fight, from Star-Lord, Zella, and Helix Snake, the 3 ultimates that they built in that fight, and they're just going to come in and win the next fight and come in with some incredible time bank like they did in Numbani. But if they can just use a few ultimates, like a Shatter Pulse Bomb, or like Shatter Window, or some sort of Blade Valkyrie combo, if they can get that combo conservatively using their ult, they can start to snowball in a reverse direction by building their ultimates off of other ultimates, which is a very important tactic in Overwatch, building ultimates off of other ultimates.
Yes, indeed, but not even in terms of the ultimate fight. It's simply the matter of how they approach this next fight for the side of Game of Thrones, because whenever there is a disconnect, you do have to wait for your player all the way back within spawn. And so the question is, do they regroup as a team, or do they try to force this 5v6 knowing that they have such an ult advantage and overcommit too many ultimates? And I think that's really going to determine how the rest of this map goes.
Mm-hmm. It is going to determine a lot of how this map goes as well. So we do have Dan coming back in. Is he in the game or is he okay?
He is in the game. It's a lovely little spectator bug as there they are spawning back in, and they're gonna wait for him.
They're going to wait. I do think that is the smart choice there. They don't have 3 people on the cart. They just put 2 on and 3 now. And Helix catches Sway, but Chi-Chi getting hit by the pulse bomb. After Sway goes down, that's a huge pick as that Valkyrie ultimate is not going to be online for this next fight. But one thing the game has to do is they need to get this disengaged quick. Otherwise, there's going to be 5 ults on the side of... Shadow comes in, finds 2. Zella throws out the Bob. Kobayashi goes down. Dragon comes out, doesn't find anyone, but forces out the immortality on the side of Crazy, on the side of Game of Throws. And Phoenix Rising, even at the ultimate disadvantage, they play slow and they charge up those ultimates that they were coming up on, and immediately they're looking to complete the map with an incredible time bank, and they do 4 minutes, 7 seconds on the side of Phoenix Rising. That is a dominant performance in Junkertown, and Game of Thrones needs a strong answer for it.
I'm just gonna have to say it. I think Game of Thrones kind of threw that fight once they come in on the reconnect. For some reason, Sway committed a little bit too early before Dan was out of spawn, but still managed to get a pick and a trade off the pulse bomb, trading himself on the Tracer for the Mercy. I mean, that's a 5v5 you should be willing to take with a support down on their side, but they didn't really push up on it. They kind of just let the cart continue to roll and escalate it into another team fight, and it just all fell apart because in the actual fight, it was just Phoenix Rising cleaning up.
Yeah, especially with the ultimates that they had at that point. There's just so many ultimates on the side of Phoenix Rising that had yet to come up. If they pushed in, they might have been able to stop those ultimates coming out. And
attackers incoming in 30
some
seconds.
interesting compositional choices coming in from Phoenix Rising. Maybe this sort of playing with their food idea that you talked about in the last round, but
Keep the skies clear for me.
I mean, it could be a playing with the food. It could be... I mean, Torbjorn, as much as people love to meme on him, he's not really a meme pick anymore. I mean, with Genji existing, the turret is a great way to get rid of it in any way, shape, or form. Anything that's kind of jumping all over you, maybe even a Tracer. But neither of those are hovered over right now. We have Junkrat and Widowmaker, and Sway is going to have to get countered as long as he sky.
yeah. Pushed back into spawn by the Pharah Rockets, barely staying alive there, and Sphinx just does not have the ability to counter the Pharah. And like you did say, the turret is putting pressure on the shield of Game of Thrones there. Zella finding 2 picks onto both Crazy Lady and Sphinx there. Will swing this fight in Phoenix Rising's favor as they're pushed almost back into their spawn. As Sway just has a Sigma shield thrown in her face. She does go very but is able to regenerate health though. Very, very close. That could have been an incredible pick. The Shatter doesn't find anything on Star-Lord, and he gets stunned, and the Shatter finds 4 for Dan the Hawk, and that is just what they needed. The barrage comes in from Zella, though. That is probably just what you would have wanted on the side of Game of Thrones there, for that ultimate to come out and not really find anything. But it does look like Zella was throwing it out to switch to the Ashe.
Yep, you just kind of throw the barrage in just because you know you're going to die. And then going into this next fight, you're on the Ashe, which is a little bit better, but still very I don't respect them having to get this way. And have this fight.
Yeah, that is very advantageous for Game of Thrones. That's a very good choice, but Crazy Lady just getting done by Zella. Zella finding 2 on the Ashe, on that high ground, taking that little off angle. The Torb flanking around, dueling the Brigitte. And to find the pick on Hunter. That's a lot of picks on the side of Game of Thrones. They turn around, even down the support. They find a way to turn around. She does at the Resurrect onto Paprika, though, and all that's doing is stalling out a little, but it's allowing them to get Ult Charge there, and crucially, for Phoenix Rising, all 6 of them spawn, well, I'd say all 6, but unfortunately for Phoenix Rising, 5 of them spawn in close. One of their teammates spawns far. Chi is spotted out and gets caught out by the Widowmaker there. And immediately a quick brawl, but they're too grouped up because most of them got close spawn that the Lift and Molten Core combination allows Phoenix Rising to start stabilizing here. Zella finding multiple picks there, and the Torbjorn there, rushing out with the hammer, trying to get it, and does get the hammer onto Crazy Lady there. Helix Snake going for the meme pick.
Yes, indeed. Helix Snake a big, and Zella getting another pick
onto Wheezy. Nearly out of spawn, Wheezy getting sent right back. That is brutal for her.
Yes, indeed. Now we have Sway going over to the Pharah themselves, which is interesting just because you've seen how much work there's a Torb turret that is constantly up. I mean,
it is an interesting pick. Bob comes in from Zella, gets charged away, but it still has some sight lines. And just as I say that, Bob finds Jan, Zella finds Sway, and that's 3-4 picks on the side of Phoenix Rising, and that is another team fight win for them. 2.5 minutes on the clock for Game of Thrones.
Yes, indeed. So now it seems like Game of Thrones is just starting to throw things at the wall. Sway switching over to Ashe now. Just looking for what's going to stick. Darius is going to be switching over to the D.Va as well. Maybe just to try to dive either this Ashe or the Torb, either or really. Something to just give your team an ounce of room instead of just taking damage.
Yeah, Star-Lord was a little bit forward there, but still, this turret, the sightlines it has, just covers, and Zella finds the pick onto Wheezy again, and damn, the awe does disconnect again. That is very bad luck for Game of Thrones there.
Yes, indeed. Unfortunately, we're all just working off of our own PC setups and stuff. We're not all millionaires out there, so you're gonna have stuff like this happen. It's a-okay. You just gotta work through it, and I mean, going through everything, just going through and looking forward. You've only got 2 minutes on the clock right now if you're the side of Game of Thrones. Once this reconnect comes in, maybe try to do something with this Junkrat tire and then switch, simply because Junkrat's just going to keep getting pressured out by both the Ashe and Torb. I'm not really sure of what you want to do, but there's got to be some solution to these DPS in. As I'm just quickly making sure these teams are okay, a-okay here, right here.
Yeah, we are. You're just joining us. We're just waiting for a reconnect from Game of Thrones. We might have an interesting mid-match substitution because of some circumstances from Game of Thrones. We might see a flex coming in on Game of Thrones. We're going to see someone playing an off role.
Yes, indeed. I just wanted to quickly check and make sure that this wasn't against the ruling anywhere. As long as the team agrees to it, I have had no objections, so I'm just going to quickly ask for the R's. But Skittles is going to be coming back in, one of their DPS players now, to play the tank role. And to have a tank or a DPS in the tank role isn't necessarily a bad thing if you're going to force the Reinhardt, just because of how aggressively a Reinhardt can play and just take space. But if you're going to need to play something besides that Reinhardt, that's where everything starts to become frustrating.
Absolutely.
Say a Winston or a Lisa, what are you going to do?
Yeah, very interested to see what Skittles plays. Skittles is going to play the D.Va here. We're going to see the Ryan D.Va comp coming in, and it's very crucial because Darius Fulton is going to lose the ult charge on the D.Va that he was on before. And again, Phoenix Rising just has so much high ground control, but we do see Kobayashi a little bit alone there, and a charge from the back from Star-Lord there does not find anyone, but does get him away. Dark Tower does come in. Let's see if it can find. It does not find anyone. The Bob finding 2 on the side of Phoenix Rising. Zella getting a lot of value out of the ultimate, and Helix Snake finding a second hammer kill onto Sway there.
60 seconds remaining.
Helix just seems to be styling at this point, knowing how dominant their high ground hold is right now, and I can't really fault them. I mean, they just got such a grip on it, and sending just Skittles up on the Diva or just Junkrat up is just not
Yeah, the Molten Core and Gravitic Flux combo does come in, does take down crazily as Zella finds Sway. Also Darius Fulton as well, and Zella again finding multiple picks here. It seems like every time Zella is in this, is in a team fight, he's finding picks. He's finding 1 or 2 picks, just turning the team fight. So we see an immediate res onto Skittles, even at the start of the fight, but immediately Sway goes down, picked up by Zella again. And Zella just has this far sight line from just so far behind that it's almost impossible for members of Game of Thrones to reach them. And it just seems like cleanup at this point for Phoenix Rising in this overtime. Sway's going to have to try and touch. The Bob will be able to stall out, but for how long? The Bob comes in. We have spell picks coming in from Game of Thrones. And unless they get a miracle pick, they are not going to be able to take down Zella. Again, finding multiple picks, finding 3 with the Bob there, 4 for Zella as we end this third map with a victory for Phoenix Rising, 2-1.
Yes, indeed. And I mean, it seems like if you give Phoenix Rising a payload, they're going to work with it. However, if you want to go off of that theory, maybe going into Assault is the best case scenario for Game of Thrones. There's no payload in sight, it's just a point and your defensive holds, but so far they haven't really been able to put up a defense anywhere that they want.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we're going by that theory, this might be the start of a 3-2 for Game of Thrones, because after Hanamura we have another control map. I'm not positive, but we do have Helios for our 5th map. If Game of Thrones wins Hanamura, we would go to our 5th map of Helios.
Yes, indeed, and it's just about getting there at this point, because that's Game of Thrones' win condition, is they have to get to that 5th map. They can't draw here, otherwise it'll still be a win for Phoenix Rising, so it's win or go home, backs against the walls for them now. And I think there's no really worse situation you can be in. You're having somebody who's being forced to off-roll simply due to internet issues, not a lot you can do there. And I think it's definitely doable. It's just going to come down to being able to counter Zell or Helix Snake, or just being able to shut down one of these DPS that's just popping off on you.
Yeah, definitely. Zell has been very dominant on the Ashe, but Helix Snake, especially on a bunch of different roles, has just been incredibly has had some very good ultimates. The Gravitic Flux into the Molten Core has just been has found a bunch of different picks, and there's just been a lot of good performances on the side of Phoenix Rising.
Yes, indeed, but we do know that Game of Thrones had that pop-off potential. It's just they haven't been able to show it. Quick little sub before we get into the map. It's Sinks is going to be going over to the tank role on Game of Thrones, while Skittles back on DPS. Maybe it's just a matter of who feels more comfortable on that Diva, on that Sigma, or possibly even just who can play them at this point, because you are forcing somebody to off-roll.
Initiating match.
I don't know. It's just going to be a very interesting map, especially because it is Hanamura. You know, a lot of different things you can do. Bastion setups on point A. You can do some Pharah attacks, some Sim TPs. There's just... Hanamura seems to hold it all.
Yeah. I am looking forward to the attack coming in from Phoenix Rising here, because Symmetra strategies are very good on 2 CP maps. They've historically had very good. They've sometimes worked. If you catch your enemy by surprise, you can get behind them onto the point and force them to fight you for positioning instead of the other way around. And we do see Helix Snake on the Symmetra and Zell on the Mei. I'm not sure if they're going to stay on that, but I'm interested to see if they keep the Symmetra, what sort of teleporter strategy they're going to have coming into this.
Yes, indeed. And of course, the Mei is kind of a staple of Hanamura. She's just so good here, especially with the primary choke that you can wall off here on point A. Going into point B, her Blizzard as well as her wall is just so versatile. You can shut down pretty much any choke. And so, nice little Fire Strike from Darius Fulton there. Gets him a quarter of the way to Earth Shatter.
And full charge. Alright.
The question is, where is this teleporter going?
Oh, the teleporter teleports onto the top, walls up. That was an incredible combo from Phoenix Rising, and they're immediately on high ground looking on the point. Game of Thrones very coordinated, does get back. The charge does come in from Star-Lord, who just immediately starts swinging into the backline, getting itself a lot of ult charge, almost immediately charging up his ultimate already for the side of Phoenix Rising. That is a dominant first point and an incredible Symmetra TP strategy.
Yes, indeed. The Mei requires it to work just because you do need the Mei to wall the Symmetra up so she can actually be in range of that rooftop. But just getting up there, securing the high ground, is always what you love to see. Now the question is, are they going to keep the Symmetra and try to TP over this left side, or are they just going to go up main? It seems like main is the way for the side of
they were out by Darius Fulton, who was waiting there, potentially to shatter them and charge them off the side. They do teleport, and they're going to teleport up to that top little edge there, and they're going to duel them on opposing high grounds. It's just a matter of who can poke the other team harder, and immediately big pick onto Sway from Kobayashi. The Helix Snake goes down. Any picks on the side for Game of Thrones are going to be big. The Shatter comes in, catches 3. Darius Fulton does Shatter, finds 3 as well. The Blizzard comes in, and that's just going to zone people out of the point there. Skittles not even able to touch the point before getting instantly frozen and deleted by the turrets, and that is an incredibly dominant performance from Phoenix Rising. 5 minutes and 6 seconds. It feels like every time I say that the Phoenix Rising have a dominant performance, they just feel like they have to go and have an even more dominant performance the next map.
Yes, indeed. They're trying to make this a speed run. To keep that in context with, how fast going through Hanamura, the max time an attacking team can have is 7 minutes, so they completed the map in 1:54. I mean, it technically gets faster than that, but it doesn't get much faster. You're just absolutely speed running at this point. Mm-hmm. And there's got to be some kind of an answer hidden in wait, hopefully, for the side of Game of Thrones, because after making calls so close as taking it again, there's just unfortunately nothing they're seeming to be able to crack open here. Now, if they run out on this attack, I will be interested to see what the plan is.
Yeah.
Somber Reaper.
Yeah, Somber Reaper. We have a Rhine Ball. It's a very interesting combination of the tank and the DPS line. I'm interested to see how it works. We have Star-Lord going to be going very aggressive, trying to get the aggressive fire strike for some early ult charge, but we do have the Bastion set up with the teleporter. Again, that strategy, that Game of Thrones struggled a lot to deal with, and unfortunately the fire strike does not find anything. But we do have Star-Lord taking a bit of a flank here. If he gets spotted out, he might get... Nope, he just charges back to his team.
I think Skittles did find it, but unfortunately, so he just had to fail. But it might be the competition try to conquer this Bastion. You could have Sway hack, already touching point, just to kind of force the team to
already hacks Helix Snake there on the Bastion. Takes him out of turret form, and Team Martelli Field does come out and it's deleted. And yeah, it seems like this Sombra is meant to just counter the Bastion, and it does seem to work, as that is a pretty dominant first point for Game of Thrones. I feel like I should use different words than dominant, because it feels like all these teams do is hit each other with dominating attacks.
I'm just gonna come out and say it. This is a full-on Chengdu comp from the side of Game of Thrones. I mean, essentially the strategy has become, we're going to have so many things that you have to look at that you won't be able to focus, and we'll just take you down that way. And I absolutely love it.
Does switch to the Sombra to mirror, and does get the hack onto Sink, but Sink immediately boops a couple people off the high ground. That is a very important pick, as so far there's been no picks, but Darius Fulton does push up too far. There's a lot of picks, but it's very, very important for this Game of Thrones attack on point B to be dominant because of how close these spawns are. See the two supports coming in, they get deleted pretty quickly, and Reinhardt comes in, does not get anything with the charge, gets hacked, cannot use the ult there. That's crucial, because that Reinhardt shatter can do wonders on the defense. Oh, and the hack cancels the ultimate. Kobayashi just gets deleted because of it, and it's probably just a matter of if, not when. It's a matter of when, not if. Game of Thrones is going to take this point, and just how long Big Rising is going to stall out. Okay, so because of that, the two time banks get taken down so that we aren't here all night with these two teams just attacking each other over and over. 2 minutes on the side of Game of Thrones, and 2 minutes and 33 seconds for Phoenix Rising. Only a difference of 33 seconds. That's pretty close.
Yes, indeed. And this is kind of what I love to see from teams is, unfortunately, some teams kind of do it a little bit later in the series than I would like, but instead of trying to force something you've like hardcore practice or something that might be the most optimal composition, just play your strengths, throwing in the Sombra, throwing in the Wrecking Ball, and even the Reaper. I mean, there's just so much value that they're getting despite the fact that these aren't the optimal picks. The question is, are they going to find the same value now that there's not a Bastion on the defense? We're going to have the Ashe, Hanzo, double sniper kind of setup, as well as a Ryan Zarya to bubble anybody that the Wrecking Ball tries to die.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how this comp will face up against a more traditional comp. And I mean, especially in this elo, sometimes comfort picks are better than what is meta in the Overwatch League, because this is not the Overwatch League, and these are not professional players who are the best at the game.
Beacon in place.
Yes,
I'm out of
play to your strengths is something I've always argued in. Ooh, trying to find Sway on that Sombra as they keep the music
Yeah, Starlord gets a whole bunch of ult charges, 53% already at this, and Darius Fulton goes down very quickly. Sink also goes down. The depth shield's not enough, but Sway does find the pick on Helix Snake because of how far the spawns are, but immediately rezzed by Chi-Chi because of these spawns.
Yes, indeed. And so now they're just kind of being forced to brawl with each other, back and forth. And I think it's just going to come down to the fact these snipers really can't be touched as Sinks goes over to Zarya now, not even a Wrecking Ball. So, Romeo needs to choke, but Starlord has his shatter.
Oh, Zella finds a pick onto Wheezy, but Skittles immediately getting 2 picks as well, and Darius matching with 2 of his own. Just because of how many picks that there are. Oh, Sway getting the hack onto Chi-Chi, causing him to fall off of the map there. And that will be point A for Game of Thrones.
Yes, indeed, a little bit sloppy, but they get it in the end. And I mean, Skittles managing to get those picks and giving point A with only 2 minutes and 30 seconds in the time bank for the side of Phoenix Rising. It's massive, especially on a map like Hanamura where first holds are definitely possible. You don't even have to really cheese comp it. But now you only have 50 seconds to try to see how much you can get going on point B here.
A lot of ults on the side of Game of Thrones, though. immediately they have the Samba to pressure out, just bunker on the top. Not really a bunker, but just set up on the top. Oh, the EMP finds a lot, and a Shatter, EMP Shatter, a very powerful ultimate combo. Stella just barely managing to escape. Does escape. Skittles finds one with that, but kicks coming in on the side of Phoenix Rising, and that's just what they need. Any kicks on that side, on the side of Phoenix Rising are very important because of how far they're spawned. Game of Thrones can get 3 picks, but 1 or 2 picks from Phoenix Rising just spell the end of the fight there. Sway just having to teleport in to get the ult, to get the overtime, but he doesn't do it. He does it too early. Oh, that is heartbreaking for Sway. Just teleports in with the translocator just a second, or even it was something like 0.7 seconds early.
Yeah, because you just need that 3 seconds to trigger overtime. But
yeah,
you just got to accept the fact the past is in the past. You at least got point A unlocked. And so that now that is your win condition if you are to Game of Thrones. Because like I said at the beginning of this, you have to win this map. If you draw it, it simply ends the series 2-1 in favor of Phoenix Rising. And it's definitely doable, but it's going to be hard to hold this point with how quick Phoenix Rising is on the first time.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about the idea that you don't have to cheese it, but it does look like Game of Thrones. They're going to be putting it all into cheese, I guess. They're going to do the double shield with the Torb Bastion combo, and it's going to be interesting to see how Phoenix Rising responds. We have very aerial comp in their spawn so far, and I'm not sure if they're going to switch out, but the Echo and the Pharah, a lot of aerial superiority there. It's going to be very tough for Skittles to counter both Zella and Helix Snake. It looks like also they're playing very bunkered up in the corner there as well, with the Bastion, the Mercy, the Torbjorn. 4 people just stuffed into that corner there. They're letting Phoenix Rising get through the choke for free. But they're trying to make this bunker unbreakable. Let's see if it is. Immediately Kobayashi gets the pick onto Darius Bolton, and that is a huge pick. Immediately the res comes through, and Sway gets pick up. Helix Snake gets synced off the side of the map, but Helix Snake getting another pick, and there's just not a lot to counter that Pharah. Skittles, but Skittles getting 3 or 4. Here's where we see the disadvantage of defending point A, is that your spawns are a lot farther than the spawns of the attackers.
I'd say you'd have to back out your game just a little bit, get up a tick or 2 until you can regroup as a team, and then you're gonna have to find this Pharah, whether they're aware of it or not. Helix Snake has the barrage ready enough to any shield.
Yeah, just immediately drops the barrage onto, finds 3 from it. That is an incredible pick from that. But picks coming in from Game of Thrones, and it does look like Paprika falls off the map, but 3 people on the point for that is going to be point A for them. Now, heartbreaking for Game of Thrones, but there is nothing they can do to win this match.
Unfortunately, at this point, you're playing for the pride of the draw, having the 2-1 score line simply for map differential, hoping that'll help you out at the end of the stage. But if you're Phoenix Rising, you want the 3-1. You want to be able to come into this saying that outside of Koth, which was extremely close, you truly were the more dominant team.
Yeah.
They've got a little under a minute to do it.
Yeah, that is 1 fight territory for them. A big roll for Sync. And Phoenix Rising takes the high ground, but they aren't really able to get a lot of poke in because of just the amount of pressure that Skittles is putting on them. They're trying to poke around. The Reinhardt, Starlord does have the Shatter there, looking to try and flank around, but he is sputtered out. The Echo duplicates the Wrecking Ball. That's from Skittles. Oh, and the Shatter finds 2. The window comes out. The Mine from the duplicated Wrecking Ball. Very well, but here comes Skittles' ult. It has to be big, or this map is going to go to Phoenix Rising. Skittles does go down, and it doesn't look like there's going to be anyone else able to touch, and that is it.
Victory.
Phoenix Rising taking this series 3-1.
Yes, indeed, and truly they were just the more dominant team. They were able to push their advantages. Their DPS were absolutely insane throughout the entire match, and just the type of play you need to see. At the same time, tried to make it as close as good games to were Game of Thrones. We were working on a little bit of a disadvantage with some internet disconnects and then people off rolling. But there's always stuff you can learn from a loss.
Absolutely, and just the fact that they were able to perform as well as they were, having Sinks play a role that maybe he's not as comfortable with as the DPS role, it's very, very good for Game of Thrones, and it does spell good things for them going into our next few games next week. We're going to see a lot of very interesting. I'm very excited to see more from Game of Thrones and to see more from this squad when they have Dan the Awe playing that tank role.
Yes, indeed. But now we have to move on to everyone's favorite segment, player of the match. And there's definitely a few different players you could try to pinpoint out, but DPS love is the name of the game tonight. I'm giving it to Zell. Absolutely insane on anything you played him on. You had Echo, you had some Ashe, you had some McCree. It was all just kind of in there, all popping off an extremely high level, especially with a more passive tank line. Star-Lord and Kobayashi, while reliable, were more passive, so there was less space to work with, and still Zell managing to get the job done. Definitely getting my praise tonight.
Yeah, personally, I'm going to go also with the DPS love, but I'm going to go a little bit to the opposite side. I'm going to go with Helix Snake. Just able to get a lot of good ult combos in there on Junkertown. A lot of the coordination between the Sigma and Helix Snake to get the Gravitic Flux into the Molten Core to just trap people in it is a very good ult combo, and it found a lot of picks, and it was very reliable finding picks throughout this match.
Yes, indeed. I couldn't agree more. But like we said before, it's going to be Phoenix Rising taking this series 3-1 in the end. GG's to all involved. And it's really just a great game to watch.
It really was. So our next matches are going to be Saturday. That's next Saturday. And then Sunday, Monday. Same place, same channel, same time, 8:30 Eastern. We will see you then.